In this slideshow, we want to tell you something about the history of the Mennonites. In this area, northwest Friesland, Menno Simons was born. The Reformation began in the time of Charles V, who ruled from 1506 till 1555. Charles V tried to suppress the Reformation by all means available to him and wanted to allow only the prevailing Roman Catholic religion. In Germany, Martin Luther became a reformer. In 1517, he nailed his 95 theses to the door of the castle church at Wittenberg. Martin Luther especially objected to the trade in indulgences as practiced at that time, whereby church punishments could be bought off. In Switzerland, in Zurich, Ulrich Zwingli was the most prominent reformer. He carried the new teaching through with the help of the state. A number of his original supporters resisted the great influence of the state in the church. They wanted a more radical reformation and also to introduce believers' baptism. In January 1525, this group founded a separate congregation, the First Anabaptist Congregation. From Switzerland, the Anabaptist movement spread to South Germany. Via Melchior Hoffmann, Anabaptist views were brought to North Germany and the Netherlands. His followers were called Melchiorites. In some cities, the new teaching was more or less tolerated. There was already a large Anabaptist community in Amsterdam shortly after 1530, and Leeuwarden had a congregation already as well. The central government, however, began searching out heretics. This is the chancellery in Leeuwarden. In 1531, Sikke Frederiks was beheaded in front of this building because he'd been rebaptized. He was the first Anabaptist martyr in our country. Under pressure of persecutions and because they expected the speedy return of the Lord, a group of Anabaptists began preparing the kingdom on earth. They captured the city Münster in Westphalia. Many inhabitants were baptized and the rest were expelled from the city. The Anabaptists plundered the churches, introduced the community of goods, and cancelled all debts. This is Jan van Leyden, who became leader and ruled with absolute power for a time. The Bishop of Münster besieged the city for a year, and in 1535 succeeded in recapturing it. The Anabaptist leaders were cruelly killed by hanging. After the events in Münster, the persecutions were worse than ever. Here, an execution in Amsterdam in 1535, after a group of Anabaptists had captured the town hall. Many Anabaptists rejected the Münster stream and the use of violence and wanted to follow a way of peace. In this time of confusion and persecution, Menno Simons became the most important leader for the Mennonites. Menno Simons was born approximately 500 years ago in this village, Witmarsum, in 1496. He was a farmer's son. He probably got his education in Bolsward. In 1524, Menno was ordained priest in the Cathedral of Utrecht. He began his career in Pingum, the village you are in now. Menno became vicar in the church, which is now a Dutch Reformed church. The typical Frisian saddle roof spire stands out high above the village. From 1532 to 1536, Menno Simons was priest in Witmarsum, his birthplace. This is a drawing of Witmarsum from the 18th century. The church where Menno was priest, drawn in 1723, but even then no longer in its original form. After being struck by lightning and undergoing damage by fire, the church was considerably changed. The spire was removed and a dome was placed on the roof. The church is now the Dutch Reformed Church of Whitmarsum. A bell made in 1433 hangs in the dome at the top. As a child and later as a priest, Menno must have heard this bell ringing often. The interior of the present church. The tombstone of Mr. van Aelve in this church. This was the man who confirmed Menno's appointment to the priesthood. Very soon after accepting his office, Menno began to have doubts about the Roman Catholic teaching concerning communion. This led to closer study of the Bible. The beheading of Sycophorus because he had been rebaptized gave Menno occasion for doubting the sacrament of baptism. He could find no basis for infant baptism in the Bible. Menno began more and more to present his new insights in his sermons. In March 1535, a group of 300 Anabaptists took possession of the Olde Klooster near Bolsward, then one of the biggest abbeys in this area, shown it right on the map. They destroyed images and church treasures, but let the monks leave without hindrance. Schenk van Tautenburg, governor of Charles V in Friesland, marched on the monastery with a large army and recaptured it. Many Anabaptists died. A number were executed on the spot. Others were transported to Leeuwarden and met their death there. Also belonging to this group of Anabaptists were people from Menno Simons's parish, including his brother Pier Simons. Menno realized that he had preached new ideas to many of these executed people. He spoke of poor lost sheep who had no true shepherd. Menno struggled with his conscience. On January 30th, 1536, he abdicated his office and left the priesthood. He was then 40 years old. Menno probably left Whitmarsum immediately to go to Groningen. He was baptized by Obbe Philips, who later, in 1537, also ordained him in the office of elder. But earlier, in October 1536, Menno was back in Whitmarsum to take with him his bride, Geertruid, daughter of Herman Jans Hoyer. They lived a few years in Aldersum, between Emden and Leer, in East Friesland. 3 children were born there, a son and 2 daughters. Menno was connected with the congregation at Emden as its elder. In the first years, his work area extended from East Friesland to the northern provinces of the Netherlands. In 1539, Menno's Fundament book appeared, in which he gave his views about faith and the life based on faith. The book was reprinted many times and was used a lot as a handbook. The Anabaptists met secretly in isolated places, in the middle of pastures, and sometimes in a boat. After the Bible reading came the preaching, and if it was safe, there was singing. In spite of the persecutions, Menno Simons made far journeys to support Anabaptist congregations with preaching, baptism, and communion.